G'day, gang. I wanted to talk today about identity in narrative entertainment. Right. So, I have a lot of feelings on over identification just in English speaking society in general. But I think that identity in narrative entertainment can make or break like a product. It can make something feel completely plastic, or it can completely define a character and their relationship to other characters and their place in the world. And I think that a huge percentage of how this is done is how of how it results is how it's done, how people writers go about this. Had to think on words for just a second. So this one is really a really particularly important topic to me because I think that we over identify so much in culture that I want to get this one right. Yeah, there are so many examples of characters that basically dominate a scene with a term of identity, and it just feels so off-putting and inappropriate, and it just makes you so uncomfortable. And then there are times when a character will finally have like the proverbial come to Jesus moment, and they'll say, fine, okay, I am that. And it is a really powerful conflict moment, and it is a really, really powerful character building and defining moment. So I think there are passionate and significant ways for a character to be pushed to define themselves as something, but I think for the most part, characters shouldn't have like these identities and labels. I don't think it helps the story. I don't think it helps the setting. And unless it is something that is inherently negative, I don't think it's healthy. Like if I had a female character that was just walking around saying, I am woman, I am woman, I am woman, like that would be infuriating because for one, who asked? And two, how does that make the character seem like being more about identifying them through their actions rather than their words is more significant. That's my biggest point, I think. Having them be expressing that, and having them, for example, if you have a character who is a woman, and you show them being feminine, and then you also show them being masculine, which is fine, and then have them have tender moments. I keep going back to Arcane. I really do. I think that Arcane is one of the best modern examples of getting a little bit more comfortable with gender, in the terms of that you don't have to be so traditional, but still have traditions. Like Vi is just such an example of a woman, very, very much a woman, but she has a huge amount of masculine traits. And she doesn't have to say, I'm a badass woman, because she never needs to say that. All of her actions scream that. And I think that is a really fantastic example of having, and it's not exclusive to having the issue with these characters having to stipulate over and over again their identities. It's not the only issue I have with identity in stories. I think it's just that it's just so overdone right now. And I'm not understanding our obsession with having to define ourselves in society in general. And I just keep thinking back to Arcane, man. it's just so awesome. Like the numerous examples of characters that are just being characters without having to have things tattooed on their forehead. And I think that the moment that you're so broken in terms of your storytelling is so weak that you have to put labels on a character's forehead, you're doing something wrong, in my opinion. I don't think that's a way in which that any author, any writer, any game dev, or whatever field you're in should ever have to do something. Like, characters should be obvious as to who they are, and their like identities. And again, unless they come to a point in which that they are acting outside of their own organization or their own roles or stuff like that, they're abstaining from their specific obligations and stuff like that. When they get pushed to identify as something outside of their own identity, I think that's a really great time to label a character. I think that's a really great time to have a character have to scream out their identity because they're being pushed outside of it. Imaginary example, you have a character who is within an organization and they're helping an organization, they're a sympathizer, but they're not in the organization, and someone consistently calls them out for betraying people outside of that organization because they're sympathetic to that organization, and then you have that identity explained of, fine, I am actually part of them. Those sorts of identities and those sorts of ways of I guess celebrating your character and pushing your character and having characters honor the actions of another character is really significant. And I think that's one of the only times that we should actually say what a character is. Otherwise, I'd love examples of, if people have a really good example of saying, this is, a classic, this is Sparta moment where they have to like explain it. But outside of like really fun moments like that, and character breaks and high emotional moments, and again, the proverbial come to Jesus moments and stuff like that, unless there's moments like that, I think that having to specifically state your identity in stories, I think is very, very weak overall. And I especially think that characters saying it themselves is bad, but other characters reinforcing it for other characters is bad too, saying, you're a woman. What? Why do we have to say that? Like, if you're not making it obvious, you're failing. But again, I'm really interested in this one because I live in a culture that doesn't so significantly define things, that isn't so funny about it. But I have never lived in the United States, which is, I think, from an outsider's perspective, it seems to be a cultural hub of labeling and identifying to a wicked extreme. I don't know of any other country that defines someone by their residency or citizenship and then their nationality. Like, I've never heard of, a Dutch English person. I've never heard of a Dutch Australian person. I've never heard of those sorts of terms used in the frequency in which that they're used in the United States, especially. But I really don't hear those terms used. It is a whole different ballgame. So I'm not speaking specifically to that incredible extreme. I'm more so talking about the way that it reflects in almost copycat culture and entertainment. Because I think that a lot of people like to emanate the US, which makes perfect sense given the extraordinary success of US entertainment media. I don't think anyone can deny that that is an extremely successful enterprise, but field, place. That you guys are really good at entertainment media in general. But I think that a lot of other places do copy that. And it comes with a really massive array of great stuff, but it comes with negatives too. And I think that other English-speaking cultures do have identity overload, but I don't think it is in anywhere close to the way that they do it in the United States. But again, I'm an outsider to that culture, so I'm really interested in what people from the United States feel about it. I remember when I went over, because I visited the United States very briefly, and I remember I went into a store and someone came up to me and told me their name, and it made me feel so uncomfortable because I don't understand why they did that. We don't do that in Australia, and we certainly don't do that here in the Netherlands. So it was completely odd to me. And I told my friend from the US, and they're like, no, that's normal. That's what they do. And I'm like, I'm not going to remember the name of every person I go into the store of. I'm sorry, I'm just not. What is the functional process of doing that? Of coming outright and proclaiming your identity to a complete stranger that you're going to to help. And I understand that people from the United States will say, well, it's for commission. This was not a commission store. This was, it was just a random weird behavior that I had a cultural clash with. So I'm interested in hearing about the way that the United States does stuff in difference to other places in particular on this one. But I am very interested to hear how people feel about identity in narrative in general. Like, do you think it doesn't bother you when like characters tell you what their identities are, particularly unprompted, or in circumstances that don't quite allow or don't quite aren't quite appropriate? But yeah, tell me what you think. Really interesting. Have we gone crazy with just in general identity? Is it overboard, or do you think that it's not far enough? Yeah, really, really interested on this one, because it's also, again, it's outside a lot of my understanding. So when I watch it in a movie, it's very jarring to me, because I'm not from a culture that identifies in the same way that, like, they do in the United States. So I'm very interested to find out what other people think. Please tell me. Really always want to start a dialogue, but this is a big one for me. I really want to understand, like, how people in the United States feel about how they do that, and how people outside of the United States feel about that one in particular, but not just the United States. I want to hear about people's opinion on just identity and labeling identity and specifically stating identity. So yeah, love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to me all the way to the end. I don't know why you all are doing that, but I really appreciate it. Okay, bye.